on yesterday, the suspect committed an aggravated robbery of 2 individuals at a store at 1515 South Buckland. He pointed a gun at a female victim who did not want to release her purse. He then pulled the trigger, but the gun malfunctioned. So he intended on shooting that robbery victim who was refusing to release her purse. Responding officers broadcast the suspect's information over the police radio. The suspect was driving a white Chevy HHR or PT Cruiser. Southeast Patrol deployment officers located the suspect's vehicle driving and broadcast that location over the police radio. Southeast Patrol officers attempted to stop this suspect, but the suspect refused to stop and he sped off as officers tried to stop him. Patrol officers got in a chase with this suspect, who then bailed out of the car on foot and began to flee on foot. That was at the 9700 block of Lake June. Officers pursued this suspect on foot and observed him remove his coat and throw several cell phones into some bushes around the corner of the laundry room inside the apartment complex. That complex, like I mentioned, August Apartments. The suspect slipped and fell during his quick pursuit near a swimming pool. As he slipped and fell, he pulled the gun for the first time on officers and pointed it at the officers. Officers yelled loud commands for the suspect to drop his gun. Then officers fired their weapons at the suspect as a result of the suspect not complying with those instructions. The suspect then jumps up, continues to run around the corner of that laundry room where he stopped at the corner, stands and points his gun, waiting for the officers to round the corner. Officers rounded the corner at a wide angle so that they could see the suspect before the suspect could see him. As they rounded the corner in a wide angle, they fired on the suspect, who stumbled and fell to the ground. The suspect was transported to Mesquite Regional Hospital, where he's pronounced dead. The victim to the original robbery's property was recovered from the suspect's vehicle. Several cell phones were recovered from the bushes, and the suspect's .45 caliber gun was also recovered. One of the rounds from the officer's weapon that was fired at the suspect missed the suspect, traveled through 2 walls within the apartment complex, and the debris from the bullet struck a 3-year-old child who received a bump on the head and is in good condition. Let's answer questions on that first shooting because there's so much detail. And I'll just go 2 rounds. Raise your hand and be acknowledged, please, if you don't mind.
How many officers actually fired then at the suspect?
I believe all 3.
All 3?
Yes. What we do have here to confirm details, if I say I believe all 3, please get with Lieutenant Hughes for homicide to confirm some of the details that you might ask. If I'm sure about it, I'll let you know, and you don't need to ask. Great. Again.
Material from the robberies victims was found at that scene, was it? I don't think we followed up to that point.
In the car. Yeah, in the suspect's car. Was found in the suspect's car.
So those phones that he was throwing out, were those from those people or were they from something else?
We have yet to determine that. Our detective stayed up all night trying to piece together some of the details and have yet to conclude all the follow-up that's needed to piece it together.
They were saying at the scene that they thought that he might be responsible for other things. Is that one of the things that we're looking at?
Yes. Yes.
Did the officers handle it all correctly?
It's exceptional police work. it's beyond correctly. If they had just cornered at a short angle, we would be talking about injured officers, possibly seriously injured, possibly dead officers. They use all of their training and really spectacular police work. I mean, to be able to get in a vehicle chase and then a foot chase and round two corners the correct way with adrenaline and all the things going through your mind and all the second guessing that will come later, and to put that out of your mind and just focus on staying alive, getting control of this suspect was exceptional police work. I'm quite proud of these officers, the performance out there that day. I'm going to get him and I'll come back for a second round. Yes, sir.
Chief, are you concerned at all that you mentioned the one bullet missed, hit a couple walls and fragment hit that shot? Are you concerned at all about a situation like that? I mean, clearly you can't ask them to be 100% accurate, but does that concern you in your...
You know, what we ask officers to do before they pull the trigger on their weapon is to adequately get target acquisition, to know what you're shooting at, know the backdrop of what you're shooting at, to ensure the things behind your target are just safe to shoot. And they did all of that in split seconds. And a miss with a gun pointed at you is quite understandable. I absolutely have no criticism of the officer's behavior that on yesterday for this particular incident. Anyone else before we go to the second round?
You talked about rounding the corner at a wide angle as opposed to a sharp. I don't need you to do that, but what do you mean by that?
A short angle as opposed to a wide angle, it's pretty much a tie when you see someone who's secreting themselves behind the corner, and that's a losing proposition for police officers. If you approach it at a wide angle, it's a little bit of geometry, but you can widen an angle and you can see the person hiding behind a corner before they can see you. It's one of the things you have to slow your pace down. You have to take the right wide angle in order to not be seen first. But a little bit of geometry, we train and train and train officers to do that at corners. It's a fatal flaw sometimes when officers just go toward the short angle to get there quicker, but it's better to take the wider angle. Maybe get there a little slower, but do it in a safe manner when you can see any potential suspects around corners. And I think you have a second
Do
question.
you know anything about Mr. Banks, why he was doing all this?
Pretty extensive criminal history for various offenses, including some violent offenses. We may not ever know why he chose to point a gun at Dallas police officers. But he obviously is someone that had been robbing and wasn't his first time. So we responded quickly, they were taken off the streets and protect the citizens of Dallas. Yes.
Those officers back on the street today?
No, there's no procedure. We give them as much time as they need before coming back to duty. Yes. Let's go with the second one if we don't have any other follow-up questions. This second shooting occurred about 2 hours later at 5:10 p.m. on yesterday. And I will say, just to back up on that first shooting, that suspect intended on ambushing those officers behind that corner. That was an ambush. Suspects sometimes do that. They hide and wait for officers to come after fleeing. That was an intended ambush of those officers. And that's important to know for this second incident, which was an ambush as well. This happened at 3565 Timberland. It involved suspect Bryson Howard, B-R-Y-S-O-N. He's a black male, 7/22 of 92. The officer involved is Officer Ronald Workman, common spelling, W-R-K-M-A-N. At about 5:10 p.m., a 911 call from a female caller states that a black male with braids and a gray hoodie is walking through the apartment complex at 3565 Timber Glen with a gun. And then there was a second call about 2 minutes later at 5:12 p.m. And it's the suspect calling 911 from its aunt's cell phone stated, a black male wearing a gray hoodie and khaki pants is in the apartment complex with a gun and is going to hurt someone. The suspect was describing himself. Suspect Howard then exited the apartments and he waited for the responding officers to round the corner at Building 16. Officer Ronald Workman, who was in the area and heard the call, immediately code 6 almost instantaneously as the call came out. He was already in that block number. And so were 2 other officers that were responding, but they were some distance away, just seconds away. So Officer Ronald Workman responded to the active shooter call. As Officer Workman rounded the corner at Building 16, the suspect fired 1 round, striking an empty parked vehicle, the trunk of an empty parked vehicle. Suspect Howard then immediately fires a 2nd round, which entered Officer Workman's driver's side window, struck his handheld walkie-talkie mic extension. We call that a lapel mic, L-A-P-E-L mic, that sits on the collar of our officers who have their handheld radios on their Sam Brown belts. Deflected from the lapel mic into Officer Workman's neck and jaw and lodged in his jaw. And that's where it is as we speak. The entire projectile. Officer Workman immediately accelerated his vehicle in an attempt to get out of the line of fire and puts out what's called an assist officer. He describes himself as being shot. He told me late last night at the hospital he felt like someone hit him in his jaw. Responding officers located suspect Howard slumped on the steps of Building 16, deceased from what we believe is a self-inflicted gunshot wound. In front of suspect Howard lay a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson with the slide locked back. The suspect's aunt told officers that the suspect had been struggling with mental illness. We have yet to confirm that information from the aunt. No officers fired their weapon during this incident. We are awaiting a final ruling from the medical examiner in Denton County on the exact cause of death, but the wound is believed to be self-inflicted. Officer Workman was immediately transported to Plano Medical Center where he is in stable condition. His spirits are good, and he's expressed his anxiousness to go home. He never lost consciousness. He called out where he was, that he was struck on the police radio. He was able to drive his car. He was able to direct officers to a safe location. He performed admirably and courageously after being shot. Officers have been amazed at how calm he sounded on the radio, on the police radio, after being shot. What's interesting about Officer Workman is he's 66 years old and a 10-year veteran of his department. Came on late in life, but always been in his desire to be a police officer. And our prayers are with him and his family today. And in my opinion, the grace and mercy of the good Lord, that we don't have an officer in worse shape. We'll have questions on that.
Will he return to the force, Chief?
Yes, according to him. His wife had different opinions last night, but according to him, yes.
How about that bullet? It's still lodged in his jaw. Is it going to stay there, or are they going to get it out?
They are concerned, medical doctors are concerned about swelling at this point, and so they have yet to make any types of decisions about removing the bullet until swelling is down.
But he's going to be in the hospital then for a while longer?
We don't know how much longer, but he will be there for some time before all the decisions are made and he's released. Yes?
Is it your belief, Chief, that this man made this phone call himself? with the intent of doing just this, of luring a police officer in?
It's very clear that was his intent. There's no question in our mind through investigation that was his intent, to lure us there in ambushes. And this is in some of the data from the last 2 years, that there's been an increase in ambushes of police officers across this country. And we hadn't seen it as much in the city of Dallas, but we're starting to see some of the trending happen here with these 2 incidents.
How do you explain that, Chief? Why? Why does that happen?
Well, we're confirming the mental illness aspect of this situation, but some of the other situations have been obviously drug-related. The person was high on drugs and or having some mental illness in combination with drug use, or just, you know, just mean. This is their way of committing violence and fear, and they just do it for normal people, unexplained reasons. We don't know why, but our officers survived both these potential ambush situations that could have led to much dire circumstances. Just aren't.
When you look at the circumstances, for me, I think about when you go through training, obviously you do your best, but when you look at these types of situations and the circumstances surrounding, how do you go about trying to train for something so unexpected, these circumstances so weird? So going forward, if you see that type of trend, what will you say and do going forward?
You know, I give a lot of credit to Assistant Chief Floyd Simpson, who's not here today, but he's implemented every day is a training day. And that training happens in the car through video on the laptop computer in the car. And so when an officer comes to work and logs on and ready to go out to his beat or her beat, they see the officer safety tips that keep you alive in this job. And I give all the credit to that idea coming from Assistant Chief Floyd Simpson, I attribute to saving officer lives. Every officer I spoke with last night talked about the training that they received, both during the academy, where we have in-service training for our veterans, and the Every Day is a Training Day, and about the mentality you have to stay alive, to stay positive, to do whatever you need to do, morally, ethically, and legally, to survive this job. And I would be remiss to say it takes its toll mentally on our officers, and they're our heroes, and they perform this job without a lot of credit, but they do it admirably. And I'm quite proud of the actions of both officers in both incidents, of the officers in both incidents.
Just
Yes,
follow up.
yes.
I'm sorry. In reference to the training in the cars, is that something relatively new? Is that something in the last year, this year?
It's relatively new within the last 12 months. During my tenure, this training has been put into the cars. Every day is a training day training.
So, Chief, this isn't training for tips, crime tips. This is for the officers.
For the officer safety, how to stay alive. On the first incident, the officers had to conduct a felony stop. And that's a tactic we use where we keep a safe distance from a vehicle. We use verbal commands in a certain way to get compliance. But the whole idea is to create angles of protection using the car door, your body positioning, so that we can survive these types of assaults. And it's emphasized every day in the car as the officer clears the station and heads toward the streets of Dallas. Lynn, yes?
You said you were still trying to find out the mental illness part. What about the criminal background? Did he have any type of...
None. On the second incident, none. The aunt mentioned an attempt at suicide some time ago with a gun, and some other calls. He was not being treated for mental illness. He just had the behavior according to the aunt. And that's the information we have yet to confirm. That's according to his aunt.
So there were police responses on these attempted suicides?
We're not sure about any of that. We have to really follow up to confirm that. So today we don't know that ought to be true other than what the aunt said. Yes, sir.
With the lapel microphone,
Yes.
I mean, obviously that's a unique scenario. Last week, the Dart police officer who was shot, she talked about her crucifix potentially helping her, what's your take on these things? I mean, I mean, obviously, it's not a part of the defensive setup of a, officer's body gear, but, I mean, are these, in fact, saving people's lives?
They are, and this is just my opinion, disclaimer. The guardian angel of law enforcement, the grace and mercies of the good Lord is at play when you have these types of circumstances. And some of you may have your own beliefs, but that's what I'm going to believe here on both these incidents, along with officer training.
Does the officer?
Yes, I'm sorry, first round.
Give me a background on Officer Workman, what he did before he joined the force 10 years ago.
It's interesting, he worked for Texas Instruments for a while, and then he left there to be a travel agent, started his own travel agency, and always yearned to be a Dallas police officer, and took us on at the age 56, some 10 years ago, and he'll have a lot of stories to tell his grandchildren
So
about this job.
His first police job?
Yes,
At 56?
yes. Now he's 66 now, that was 10 years ago when he started.
Do you suppose his picture would be available? That seems like a reasonable thing in that case.
I think we can make it available, get with our
He's a unique.
public information staff, and we'll make that, yes, very, very much so.
Chief, what do you attribute this increase in the assaults on officers to? I heard you say a number of different things about that. Are you thinking that mental illness and perhaps the lack of treatment for mental illness out there in the wider community across our whole country is one of the reasons that attributes to this, where officers are confronting these kind of people that are either on drugs or mentally ill who aren't receiving the kind of treatment they need?
I try to stay away from social commentary as much as I can. You always seem to have a foot in your mouth comment at the end of the day. So I'll leave that to the experts on why this behavior is occurring.
I guess it's fair to say that your department has recognized that the job, the man and woman in the uniform has become more dangerous.
Last 2 years, statistics don't lie. Much more dangerous. 20% increase over 2010, and just last year, 30+% increase in felonious assaults of officers by suspect with weapons is the key.
Chief, I'm sure you remember in the early 90s, all the police officers that were being shot and killed, and that was a record-setting time in the city. Do you in any way make any comparison with that?
I think the jury is out on the trending, and you're speaking of the late 80s throughout the early 90s. 88, we had one of our highest years of officer deaths. In 88, we had 5. One of my partners was killed in 88. That's why I remember that startling in my mind. And I think the jury's out yet. It's still early on. And that was precipitated by the crack cocaine drug wars that we were experiencing here and everywhere in the country was experiencing. I don't know that we have that same type of trending at this point. It's 2 years of data. It's concerning. Of course, on last year, we went to a mandatory wear of the ballistic vest for our department for the first time in our history. Every officer that works the streets has to wear their vest. Or work in a critical incident in the field, whether they work the streets or not, they have to wear their police vest. And that's new for our department. And in the summer, it's very uncomfortable. But I'd rather have you sweat than have to bury you. So we are going forward with that continued policy. I have to run to a funeral, guys. I appreciate it, but I think we did enough around the questions we got to answer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. You're waiting for me. Thank you.
We'll have some packets